Okay, welcome everyone. This is, as Jen said, this is Sean Lafferty. I'm the general manager for Steinel America. Looks like we've got the numbers have kind of leveled off here, so I think we've got most of our participants in already. Okay, so the purpose of this webinar, we had a very similar webinar a couple of weeks back that was a little bit more technically oriented and got very detailed about some of the applications and solutions that we bring to the table. The intent with this one is we wanted to make it a little bit more easily understandable and really drive the point that with standalone solutions, we can comply with most of the major energy codes, or at least the requirements of most of the more stringent energy codes. And we do this in a standalone way without network controls, right? So where most of the industry is going to network controls, we feel there's still a really strong play out there for using standalone controls. And we can do that with our standalone controls, whereas most of our competitors can't, because we've really built a lot of features and functions into just basic sensors and power packs and switches. So with our DIM24 line of Control Pro sensors, as well as in certain applications, the COM2, and our relatively new Super Duty power pack, the TR200 and TR250, we really have a robust set of standalone controls that can be installed very simply and don't require a whole lot of programming. We don't have a lot of commissioning time that we need to add to these types of projects. So we see a little bit of a backlash in the market that while network controls is where the industry is going, there's also a little bit of backlash against that as projects look at the pricing and are looking for ways to value engineer and cut some of the cost out. And so we're getting asked if we can solve for code requirements in a lot of places using our standalone controls, and the answer most of the time is yes. We can't cover everything, but we can cover an awful lot of cases, scenarios, and specific requirements. And we can do it with a very easy to program smart remote where we don't require a commissioning agent. You don't need to send somebody out to the job site for a day or 2 days at several $1,000s per day of added cost to the project. Typically, this can be done by the contractor. Most of what you're going to see comes out of the box. We went through and adjusted the programming in most of our sensors sometime last year in order to accommodate the updated energy codes, IECC 2018 and Title 24, for example. So a lot of the features and functions that are required to be programmed in other network solutions come pretty much out of the box, pre-programmed that way. And with a very simple interface on our smart remote, you can actually make adjustments as necessary. But the purpose of this webinar today is really to get into some specific examples of how to apply some of our products and meet some of the more advanced energy code requirements. So we'll start off looking at some commercial office spaces. This is one of the biggest areas where we see our products continuing to play very well and meet requirements. So as an example, commercial office space often has open office areas, either cubicles or open desks. And some of the requirements that apply here would include potentially a daylight responsive daylighting zone, so along the windows, especially in a larger open space like this, partial on or manual on, and receptacle control. So when we look at a layout, this is an actual project that our layouts department did. And you can see we basically have provided occupancy sensors that are basically set to automatically shut off with the correct time delays. All the sensors need to be set to partial on or manual on in order to meet code. And then we've got a momentary switch for the manual control override, and we're using a second power pack in order to do the receptacle control. So you can see a list of products here. That's our ultrasonic Quattro DIM24. In an environment like this particular one, you can see there are cubicle walls here. So there's really not much value in a dual tech since the passive infrared portion of the dual tech probably isn't going to be able to see people behind their cubicle walls anyway. So we would recommend here, a little bit of cost savings and probably a slightly better coverage with a pure ultrasonic. And that ultrasonic's got a 0 to 10 volt dimming function to it. So what you can see is, in the area closest to the windows, you can have the DIM24 performing daylight harvesting functions because each of our sensors, the entire Control Pro line, has a photo cell in it. So that sensor right there is ultrasonic for occupancy and vacancy. It's got 0 to 10 volt dimming, and it's also got a photo cell. So we're able to check off most of the requirements for this particular space just using ceiling mount sensors. And we've got 2 power packs, one to power the lighting load, and then a second one to power the receptacle control. So 2 power packs. This particular space required 4 ultrasonic sensors and 2 momentary switches, one at either entrance, right, for manual override. So very short, simple bill of materials, very cost effective. You'd be looking at about $800 to the contractor with this kind of a solution. Whereas if you were to go to a full, network control solution with some kind of room controller plus multiple digital sensors plus multiple digital switches, you'd probably be looking at a price point substantially higher than that.
Sean, we have a question already as well.
All right.
Joyce Wong, what is the function of the momentary switch in this application? Is it just turning the lights on and off and the dimming is for the sensor set levels, or those cells dim up and down?
That is correct. That is correct. So it is both. So our momentary contact switches on a momentary press, when you just press it, it toggles between on and off. It's a single button switch. If you press and hold, it'll alternate between dimming up and dimming down. So it'll provide you both manual on capability as well as dimming control for the lighting in that space. Yep, great question. All right, moving on. So let's take a commercial office space, and in this case, a small office. So you would no longer necessarily have a requirement for daylighting, since the electrical load of the lighting is going to be relatively low, certainly well below the 150 watt threshold that is common in most of the advanced energy codes. But you do have in most places now either manual on or partial on, which you can manage with a 0 to 10 volt dimming. And so in a simple application like this, we would even recommend just going to a simple dual tech wall switch. We would recommend dual tech here as opposed to a passive infrared. You never know what kind of monitors, the end user occupant of the space is going to have. If they've got multiple large monitors that they're sitting behind in their office, it's possible that the passive infrared wouldn't detect them. So we would recommend using a dual tech here. And that dual tech sensor, or that dual tech switch, has passive infrared as well as ultrasonic. It's got a 0 to 10 volt dimming output to it, so you can do manual control of the light level. It does have a daylighting force off function available in it, but wouldn't be necessary in this application. You can nice interesting note about this product in different applications. This product can also be connected if you had 2 switches, 2 points of entry. Our dimming switches actually allow you to have a master and satellite where both the master and the satellite can do dimming, right? Most competitive product out there, the master can dim and the satellite can only on off. But we've got a communication link between our switches, which allow us to communicate the state. And therefore, even with multiple, we can do true multi-way dimming with this product. So, but in this application, obviously a small office like that, maybe up to 250 square feet, you'd just be looking at one wall switch. And for the dual tech 0 to 10 volt dimming, you'd be looking at, price to the contractor somewhere under $100. And you've got most of your energy code requirements fulfilled here.
And we have a few more questions. First, okay. Can you connect for plug load control?
Right. So for plug load control, unfortunately, we would need to go to a slightly more advanced solution. We'll get to that one in the large office application. So for the small office application we're showing here, yeah, we do not provide plug load control with the dimming switch.
Okay, and can these be used in a 3-way?
Yes, that's what I was just covering. Yeah, absolutely. It can be used in a three-way. And like I said, we've got a communication link between the switches that would allow us to do dimming at both locations in a three-way. So that's somewhat of a unique capability.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Okay, in the large office application, again, so someone asked about the receptacle control in the larger office application. We would include the same 0 to 10 volt dimming and the partial on or manual on, as well as we've added receptacles. When we're going to receptacle control, we really need to have our TR200 power pack. The TR200 power pack is actually a 60 amp power pack, or relay, I should say. There's a 60 amp relay in there, which has been rated by UL at 20 amps, since that's the maximum rating we can achieve with a power pack. So we've really got a very robust relay in there that can control pretty much any kind of plug load, really just about any load you can imagine. It's a really robust. This is why we call it the Super Duty power pack, because it is a much more robust power pack than what's out there in the market from competition, as well as our, in comparison to the TR100 and 150, which is more in line with what you see from competitors. So the TR200 is fully rated to do receptacle control. And in this case, we would be putting 2 power packs in, one to control the receptacle load and one to control the lighting load. And then that would work in conjunction. We would recommend a DT Quattro here with those 6 light switches. We're probably still looking at less than 150 watts in a large office. So that's why we haven't factored in daylighting into this particular application, but you could. And then we're recommending, again, the momentary contact switch at the 2 points of entry. So you'd have, on off and dim up, dim down capability with those. With our DIM 24, we can also task tune and set the lighting levels a little bit lower, so that when the lights do come on by either partial on or by the manual on, you can have it set to a lower light level if you like, and it'll retain that as the standard default on lighting scenario.
And Sean, we have a few more questions. Is the plug load control connected to an overall management system or simple occupancy sensor controlled?
Right, so in this particular case, there's no central system, right? So throughout this entire presentation, you can assume there is no central system required. We do have the ability to receive input from a time clock, for example, but generally speaking, what you're going to see in this presentation is all standalone without any network controls. So again, we have an occupancy sensor here. The occupancy sensor would connect to both of the power packs. The one power pack would connect to the lighting load and would give you, if you went with the partial on, it would give you an instantaneous, you walk in the room, it comes right on. And then the timeout would be slightly different also from the other power pack for the receptacle. So if you're doing manual on, for example, if you walked into the room, the occupancy sensor would activate the receptacle, not activate the lights until the user manually hit the momentary contact switch. So that's why we're using 2 different power packs, one for each load, so that we can, one of the power packs will automatically put the receptacle on, and the other is programmable to either partial on or manual on for the lighting load.
Thank you. A few more questions here. Do you have the momentary switch in gray?
Do we have Thurston or Poria on the line? That's a good question. I'm not sure, to be honest. We typically sell it in wireless, in white. I'm not 100% sure if we have it available in other colors. We'd have to check on that. The previous sensors, the sensor switches that I was referring to before in the previous application, we have available in white, light almond, gray, black for the dimming switch. For the momentary contact switch, I believe we are limited to just white. And I see that there is another question here about the momentary contact switch. Is it wireless? No, it is a wired momentary contact switch. So it wires into the power pack. and then the power pack into the sensor. So that way you've got communication between the switch and the sensor. Okay, thanks, Poria. Yep, so the momentary contact switch, white, ivory, light almond, and black. Unfortunately, no, not available in gray. And if you look in the chat, there's a link to the data sheet if anybody has any other questions on the momentary contact switch. Okay, any other questions, Jen?
Yes. Do I have two outputs from the sensor? Can I achieve receptacles on occupancy and lights on manual or on vacancy?
Yep, scratch that. You just
scratch
explained
that. I
it.
just
Yeah.
explained that. Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm
yep.
catching up.
Yep. Okay. Very good. All right. Let's move along then. Okay. So conference rooms, commercial office space. So again, we're looking at partial on, manual on, 0 to 10 volt dimming, and receptacle control. In this particular scenario, we've also included a user requirement, not necessarily a code requirement, but in this particular case, we may have a presentation area down here where we have a desire to have one dimming control for this zone, a different dimming control for the area lighting for the rest of the room, and a third dimming control for what appears to be a pendant fixture over the conference table. So basically what we've included here then is we've got 3 different slide dimmer switches. You can see here you've got a regular slide dimmer with an on-off button. We've got 4 power packs and 2 sensors here. The 2 sensors, depending on the layout, the size of the room, you might be able to get away with just having 1 in this scenario. But basically we've put 1 in either corner, and we're recommending a dual tech corner mount, mostly because we have this pendant mount fixture here in the middle. So normally if we were going to recommend an IR Quattro HD, a passive infrared would do great in this environment, but it's likely to be blocked by that pendant mount. And aesthetically, maybe if you're putting a pendant mount over the table in the center of the room, you may have an architect or designer who would prefer not to have any kind of sensor in the middle of the room. So with the corner mount, we can put it over here in the corner. It'll detect the human heat signature as people come in. So we'll have the double check on making sure that we've got human occupancy in here. The dual tech allows us to keep it active, even if people are behind this pendant, maybe blocked somehow. So we're getting really good coverage. We've got 3 different dimming controls on the wall here. And then we've got a 4th power pack, which is going to be wired up for the receptacles. So again, as mentioned before, the receptacle will be working on automatic on, whereas the dimming controls will be manual on with a slide dimmer manual control. So for this total solution package with 2 corner mounts, 4 power packs, and 3 switches, it sounds kind of like a lot of equipment, but at the end of the day, you're getting this job done for about $600 to the contractor. So we see that as a very cost-effective way to do this. And again, no network controls, very light on commissioning, just a couple settings to be done, and you're good. All right. Any questions on this one, Jen?
We have one back to the momentary switch. Is that connected by low voltage wiring to the power pack?
Yes, that is correct.
Perfect. And then do we have a master control for the 3 wall box dimmers?
Not in this scenario. So, if the end user is calling for some kind of a scene switch or, a programmable scenario, or a master override, yeah, you'd probably be looking at a network control solution to provide that level of control to the end user. In this case, we've just provided the three individual switches, 1 for each zone, which is yeah, it's a lesser level of end user control, but at the lower price point, obviously, you know, you're looking to value engineer here. Your end user may not get everything that they think they may want. And in many cases, if you're trying to value engineer, they'll understand that maybe some of those really nice to have features and functions are not going to be available.
Okay, and can you achieve the same dimming with 3 momentaries instead of the slide dimmers?
Yeah, you could. You could go with momentary switches here. You know, I think the slide dimmer and the momentaries are a little bit more cost effective even than the slide dimmers. But there are a lot of end users who really prefer to have the slide dimmer option, particularly in a conference room scenario where you've got that control where you can just manually sort of slide it up and down. It's more of a common interface. But yeah, absolutely, you could do this with momentary contact switches if you wanted to.
Thank you. And one more. What if the requirement is a standalone multi-zone control via single gang wall station?
A standalone multi-zone control via a single gang wall station. Trying to understand a little bit. A standalone multi-zone control via a single gang wall station. So in this case, yeah, if you're looking for a programmable switch here, where you're going to have, you know, so in this case we're looking to do 3 zones, and obviously we're putting 3 switches, so you're looking at a triple gang wall box. If you needed to go to a single gang wall box, yeah, you're probably looking at in multi-zone control, you're looking at having a programmable switch on there, and that's going to lead you into a network control solution. So again, this is not going to provide you the most slick, sleek, and elegant design, but it will get the job done at a much better price point.
Okay, and we have one more question. Ken would like to know if 3 zones would require 3 occupancy sensors with dimming to utilize momentary switches. Is that correct?
Well, it depends what you mean by 3 zones. So basically, we're wiring multiple power packs and switches up to a single sensor here. Right. So in this scenario, you're able to dim in 3 zones. Now you're not getting daylight harvesting in 3 zones. Right? If you're going to do daylighting, then you need 3 individual daylighting sensors. Therefore, you would need 3 different ceiling mount or corner mounted sensors. But what we're showing here is you've got basically 1 sensor attached to 3 different lighting zones via 3 different power packs, and then the manual user override on that is independent. And what we're getting here is the occupancy of just this sensor combined with this sensor. They're actually between the 2 sensors would be interconnected here, acting as one essentially. But if you went with even just 1 sensor here in a smaller room, you could connect the 3 different power packs and have dimming control over the 3 different zones without having 3 different sensors. Yeah, so if you need installation diagrams, absolutely, we can provide those. What we're trying to do here with this presentation is kind of just give you an overview of some of the capabilities, the advanced capabilities of some of our standalone solutions. So obviously in a real project, if you sent it into our layouts team, we would lay it out for you and we can provide you with the wiring diagrams. No problem. Yeah. So okay, we're still stuck on not believing that 1 sensor can actually communicate the vacancy to the 3 different power packs. So the 3 different power packs are going to be each connected to their own manual user override. So the dimming control is not coming from necessarily from the DIM24. The DIM24 is going to be used to set a partial on level, but the manual user override on the 0 to 10 volt is going to be through the switch and through the power pack. So if we've got more detailed questions on how is it possible to wire this up this way, why don't we take that as a follow-up? And more than happy to make Thurston and Pori available to go through the details on how that would be wired and how that would look. Okay. Now, in this particular application, we're not using a momentary switch, we're using a dimming switch. So the main purpose of that is to give the user control on the dimming. If you were to use a momentary contact switch instead, again, you would have both on-off as well as dimming control at the wall station. Okay. Let's take a look at restrooms. So in restrooms, in many places, the code requirement is just automatic on and off of both the lighting and the exhaust fan. In this particular case, we're just providing a sensor and a power pack. We're not even providing user override. Typically in restrooms, you know, it's typically not code required, and oftentimes it's not a valuable item to have, and in some cases it's actually forbidden to have user control to be able to turn off the lights at a wall station in the event that somebody else is occupying the restroom. So in this case, we really like ultrasonic in the restroom. First of all, yes, there's the issue of the partitions, but restrooms are particularly good because the tile floors, tile walls, glass mirrors all really do a nice job of reflecting the ultrasonic signal throughout the space. So you get really good coverage with just one sensor. And we would recommend here the ultrasonic one-way, and we would have that mounted up against the wall. Many times when we're looking at designs, you can see here there's a ceiling fan here in the middle where the real estate in the center of a restroom is often very difficult to get. And so in that case, we like to have a side-mounted ultrasonic here. And the US one-way, although it was designed to be a hallway starter solution, it actually fits really, really well here. We would recommend a COM2 and a pair of power packs. And basically, the power packs would be there to control the two different loads, the lighting and the ceiling fan. And again, here we're looking at, between a pair of power packs and one US hallway, you'd be looking at something under $200 as far as that goes. So really effective solution here. And again, very cost effective way to solve it. Okay. Moving on. So in the classroom, education is more than just the classroom, but we'll start. This is a second area where we've had a lot of success with our sensors. I think most people are aware of some of the big case studies that we've been able to publish around education, some of the school districts around the country. But the code requirement basically for a basic classroom in some cases is as simple as manual on. We will talk about the daylighting zones in a minute, in a second example. But for now, this is the simple version. In the simplest version, there are still places where it is code compliant. Basically to have, we've got a IR Quattro HD, one single passive infrared sensor here. For those of you who are familiar with this product, this is our flagship product. This is the very best sensor in the market, and it is ideally suited for classrooms. The reason it is such a great sensor is you can see here it's got the square shape. It's got 4 pyroelectric sensors inside of that square lens, which gives us a square coverage pattern covering the corners of the room. We've had a number of cases where we've brought our product to the table when other round type sensors leave the corners uncovered. And in a classroom, it's particularly troubling because that's usually where the teacher's desk is situated. So for a teacher who is in the corner of the classroom, this sensor will detect that person with very minor motion. Other sensors publish their coverages using tangential motion or major motion, meaning that you might have to move as much as 3 feet at the edges of the coverage pattern. And this teacher's desk is either going to not be in the coverage pattern if you have a single sensor, or if you use 2 or 4 to cover the whole room, you still may have a wide gap at the corner, right? Whereas this sensor will give you a 26 by 26 foot square of minor motion detection. So just a simple motion of, writing on a paper or moving a paper across the desk be more than enough motion for the sensor to pick up the teacher in the corner. So this is by far the best sensor for this application. We would put a TR200 power pack with that to handle the lighting load. We've got a 0 to 10 volt slide dimmer here at the doorway. So a very simple, straightforward, one sensor, one power pack, and one wall switch type solution. You can see it's very cost effective at $250 or so to the contractor for that kind of an application.
And Sean, do you have the IR Quattro in voltage?
The IR Quattro is available in line voltage. It is, yep. There is just a little bit of a cost savings of going to going to the line voltage as opposed to a power pack. But I will say, as soon as you're going to connect 2 sensors to the same power pack, in this application, you could get away with just doing the line voltage version. We find that most contractors prefer to work in low voltage as much as possible. So, but yeah, you could absolutely put the line voltage version in here as well. And just for clarification on the pricing, yeah, it is just an estimate, but it is list. So we would assume that would be basically pricing to the contractor, should be. Of course, pricing varies by region, and there are all kinds of other factors that go into it, but it's just a ballpark to give you an indicative budgetary level, idea of what we're talking about. $250 for 900 square feet, you're looking at something like 30 cents a square foot, which is great. That's a great rate for lighting controls.
And a few more questions. Thinking line voltage would be best for classrooms where there is a hard lid or asbestos existing.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, certainly, we're not recommending against it, and this is just one example. Absolutely, in a case-by-case basis, yeah, like mentioned here, with a hard ceiling, or if there's asbestos and we don't want to get into the plenum at all. Yeah, absolutely, we would definitely support that. Yeah, absolutely, it would work just as well. And the DT Quattro, no, there are no plans at this time to bring line voltage to the rest of the line. At this point, it's just the IR Quattro HD. Our stance on expanding the product line is, it depends. If we've got a strong, compelling business case and we see that we can do thousands of pieces of annually of a dual tech in line voltage, we would absolutely do it. Our sell-through rate on the line voltage IR Quattro HD doesn't really justify us bringing it to other parts of the portfolio at this point. But we're always open to hear, about cases and opportunities to grow the business. So if there's a strong business case to go to line voltage for dual tech, more than happy to entertain it. Okay. The classroom with daylighting. So as promised, we also did an example here where we've got daylighting control required. And in this case, and we find this to be the case in most school applications. Now, I know some of you out there, I'm sure, in the next minute or two in the chat room, we're likely to see, well, what if I have, and there are plenty of what ifs in this scenario where you would probably benefit from going to a network control solution. So this is not a one-size-fits-all, but in this particular case, which we find to be a very common case, and we are very successful selling this solution into schools that are using advanced energy codes that could theoretically have a 3-zone daylighting requirement. This particular case is only a 2-zone daylighting requirement. And the reason being, the number of windows and the amount of square footage of window space along the outside wall dictates in this case, we really only need to provide daylighting control inside this square. So we've got one IR Quattro HD DIM 24 here. We've got another IR Quattro DIM 24 here. We've got 2 power packs and 2 momentary contact switches. So we've got manual user override. Essentially, we're looking at, we've got two independent circuits, right? So you've got your daylighting zone with manual override for that, and then you've got your non-daylighting zone with manual override for that. We'd be looking at, with IR Quattro HDs, with 2 of those, 2 power packs, 2 momentary switches, you're looking at something in the vicinity of 450, maybe as high as 500 to the contractor. If it was a 3-zone daylighting scenario where we had to solve for that, the simple answer is we would need a 3rd sensor, a 3rd power pack, and a 3rd switch. And in that scenario, we would probably have, given that we'd have 3 sensors in the room, we probably wouldn't need the HD version. We'd go to the slightly less expensive IR Quattro, regular IR Quattro DIM 24. And instead of 450, 500, you're probably looking at something more like 600. But still a very cost-effective way to get this classroom fitted out with lighting controls. Okay. Moving on. Okay, the corridors. Now, corridors, this is, we chose to put this in the education part of the presentation. Obviously, the same concepts here are going to apply to an office that has corridors or any other type of building with corridors. Code requirements, you've got auto on comes to 100% and partial off at 50%. And in certain jurisdictions, fail-safe operation is also required. So relatively new to our portfolio is the TR200, which does have a mechanical latch, provides fail-safe operation, so defaults to on. We also have a US Hallway DIM 24. For those of you not familiar with the product line, the US Hallway DIM 24 is another really cool sensor. You can see by the holes here, we've got this very unique sort of tweeter type of output for the sound waves on the ultrasonic. So you're projecting sound waves down the halls in a very narrow beam in a very long distance. So the US Hallway can give you about 65 feet of linear coverage, basically 32.5 feet off of either end. We would couple that with a hallway starter, which is the US one-way version. The DIM 24 allows you to set your partial off to 50%, and no switch is required since it's auto on in a public space like a corridor. So very, very cost effective. We typically blow away the competition with our spacing. We have a lot fewer of these. So for a 100-foot hallway here, we would use one way plus one hallway, which would cover us to just about 100 feet linear coverage. If we had an even longer corridor and we were not starting here, obviously we'd have one of these every 65 feet. But this total package, wiring one power pack with 2 sensors, we'd be looking at about $300 to the contractor. And another question about line voltage. No, the only sensor available in line voltage at this time is the IR Quattro HD. You could do this with an IR Quattro HD. There's some drawbacks to it. You don't get quite the same linear coverage, so you don't get as much distance. And you also wouldn't get the benefit of being able to wire 2 different sensors to the same power pack. So when you go to the line voltage version, you are essentially putting a power pack in each sensor. So in terms of being cost effective, being able to wire multiple sensors here to one power pack is going to be your more cost effective way to get this done rather than putting in line voltage. But again, if there are some limitations or some specific reasons in this particular application that you wanted, again, the hard deck ceiling or other extenuating circumstances, of course we would entertain that. And it's certainly a possibility. But we would definitely, our first go-to in a corridor is typically going to be the US hallway with a power pack. All right, the gymnasium. So when you get to the gymnasium, you've got an automatic on-off, and you've got multiple different areas to control. So basically what we have here is we're using the IR Quattro HD again. We can achieve pretty high mounting heights. We recommend the IR Quattro HD upwards in the vicinity of 25, even in some cases maybe as high as 30 feet or so. We would put that together with, we basically have 6 of those here. Each of those is going to give you a really large coverage area. One, we would be looking at major motion. We don't need to have minor motion in a gymnasium. Typically, you're going to have people walking around, running around. Not a lot of standing still in a gymnasium. So you're going to have minor motion, and we're going to put it to the full extent of its capability and give you 4,000 square feet per sensor. So we have them in this coverage pattern here where we've got 3 rows of 2, so it gives you 6 IR Quattro HDs covering 24,000 square feet. They're all wired together with a single power pack and a couple of momentary contact switches down here. In this application, by the way, we would also include wire guards. We probably forgot to put those on the slide here. We do have a wire guard protective unit for the IR Quattro HD for this application, protected against basketballs, shoes, hockey sticks, whatever the kids are going to be throwing up at the lights and the sensors. And even with the wire guards, you can see we can get 24,000 square feet of coverage done for about $1,100 in this scenario. So really, really powerful application and a really great price point being able to get that done. I'll defer on the max mounting height. Pori or Thurston, go ahead and punch that in there. Off the top of my head, I don't have the exact number, but there you go, 32 feet. Thank you for that. Okay, industrial spaces. This is an area where we have had a tremendous amount of success, particularly in the last 12 to 18 months. We're seeing in the US, there are 2 trends that are blowing up right now. Personal self-storage type facilities are going up all over the country. Apparently, Americans just have too much stuff. So this is a huge booming construction market, and it's got some very unique, intricate things about it. And the second is warehouses. Some of you may have heard of a company called Amazon that is going wild, building all kinds of facilities and warehouses around the country. So we've seen a lot of activity in these 2 areas. And one thing you can see when you look at this picture, you see all those metal doors, right? And when you throw up a metal door in a facility like this, the whole place shakes, right? And so if you're going to try to use dual tech or ultrasonic, you're going to have all kinds of false ons. You're going to have lights going on where there's no people, just because you're going to have all this reverberation of these garage doors. So what are we looking for here? We're looking for automatic on, since these are basically essentially corridors and public spaces, and each of the aisleways should be controlled independently, right? So that, when you walk into one aisleway, that aisleway comes on, but the whole place doesn't come on. So here's a layout that we have done recently, and we have been doing a lot of these. We have been doing really quite a few self-storage facilities. And the reason we're so effective with it is one of our oldest sensors, the IS series. We've got the IS 345, which gives you a very long aisleway coverage, about 45 feet in either direction. And so when you've got 45 feet in either direction, you can really do with a lot fewer sensors in this application, right? So we can get it done with a lot less. We don't have false ons with dual tech. We've got the best coverage patterns of all the passive infrareds out there. So we usually wind up coming in substantially less expensive than our competitors in this space. Can't emphasize enough, if you guys are not working in this space, you should. It's a very lucrative segment, and our sensors just absolutely kill it. So we've got the IS345-24, it's low voltage. The difference really between Control Pro and the IS series is the IS series, we don't have as much of the native programming to be able to do things like dimming control and a COM2 version that can do mechanicals, and we don't have as much programming and capability in there. We still can manage the timeouts, but they're really more simple, straightforward, basic sensors at a slightly lower price point because we don't have so much logic and electronic components in there to manage that logic. So we've got the IS3360, which is more of an area sensor. It's going to give you a nice round 360-degree coverage. The 345 gives you this linear coverage. So in this example, we've got just a couple of the IS345s and an IS3360 for this kind of more square area. We're running a couple of power packs to power those and a momentary contact switch, and that's it. So we're able to get about 200 square feet plus a 45-foot aisleway done for about $450. This has really been a great area for us over the past couple of months. Okay. Moving on to the warehouse, the high bay sensors. So this is another area where we've had some really big orders over the last year or two with marquee customers, basically going into Amazon and Iron Mountain and other large national presences that have just tons and tons of sensors because they have tons and tons of high bay lights. And we have a really cool solution for that is a little bit different than what everyone else is doing, and a great value engineering play, because what we're finding is we get a lot of layouts where they have put either a factory installed sensor in every single high bay fixture, or they've added a high bay sensor to each fixture. And what we can do with our HBS 200s, we can give you basically, in this particular example, we're putting one on either end of the aisle and one in the center. And we also have this really great little snap-on mechanical device that turns our HBS 200 into an aisle starter by physically blocking any detection on the back side. So you don't have any nuisance tripping. So you may have a main corridor here where the fork trucks are zipping back and forth all day long. This aisle will not pop on. Oops, sorry about that. This aisle will not pop back on until passing underneath this sensor. We can wire these three together, have them working as one, or independently, so that when you come in and you trip the second sensor, it'll pop on whatever lights it's connected to, and so on. But we can do really large areas in a very cost-effective way, where you might have, let's say, in a 100-foot, 200-foot aisleway that we can cover here, you're likely to have, at least 6, if not 8, high bay fixtures here. And if you were to go 6 or 8 sensors, you're driving the cost of the project up substantially versus 3 of ours. So in this case, we've got these 2 aisleways. It's 6 high bays and 6 of these lens covers. You'd be looking at something like $200 to the contractor. So I mean, super cost effective, and we've had some projects, in the last year that are tens of thousands of these high bay sensors going in. And so really a terrific area. If you've got an opportunity to go out and work on these, bid on these, if you're looking at any of these kinds of projects, we know Amazon's building all over the country. Would love to say that we're in every single Amazon warehouse. I'm sure we're not. I know we're not. But they do typically wind up becoming anywhere from 3 to 10,000 high bay sensors per warehouse, depending on how big the project is. So highly recommend, if you're not pursuing that business today, you really should be looking at it. All right, so that's the overview. I just want to say thanks to everybody for coming out on this today. But the real point, the real takeaway, yeah, we have some very specific applications, and we can get into the ins and outs and the details of each of those. I encourage you to give Poria and Thurston a call and really dive deep into what we're doing here. what we're trying to get across is we have packed so much functionality into our Control Pro line that we know we can comply with most advanced energy codes. We can do plug loads, we can do multi-zone dimming, we can do daylight harvesting, vacancy sensing, fail-safe operation, independent automatic HVAC control through the COM2s. We can force on, force off. We can take inputs from BMS. We can also send outputs to BMS. So there really are a lot of things we can do with just standalone controls that are much less expensive, much more powerful than what our competitors have, and a lot less programming and commissioning. I'll leave you with just one more thought here. Well, I guess we've got one quick question here. Approximate cost on the remote. I tell you what, if it's a large enough project, we'll throw it in. Typically, we give out to each of our reps a couple to have laying around for troubleshooting and going out to project sites. But you'd be looking at something in the neighborhood of $50 to $100 on the remote. So in the grand scheme of a large project, really a very low cost item, low cost adder. So with that, please bring us more opportunities. We absolutely love to get layouts, and our guys love solving problems. They love new, different, interesting requirements. So contact your regional salesperson. You can send email requests into tech@steinel.net. If you're not sure who your regional is, you can send us an email at sales@steinel.net. And yes, for all of our reps out there, you'll have a copy of this. We encourage you to take this out, go see customers, or don't go see customers these days, but set up webinars, have your regional there with you. We're more than happy to help you with that. But yeah, by all means, please get out and do all of this, type of presentation with as many customers as you possibly can. More than happy to help you with that. So again, thanks everybody for coming out, and stay safe.
Thank you, Sean. And if anyone has any additional questions, feel free to unmute yourself at this time and ask.
All right. I guess that's a wrap. All right. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe and keep pushing.